Welcome to this week's edition of World Crisis Radio. Webster Tarpley speaking to you from Washington, D.C., and this is our special election edition of World Crisis Radio. United States in crisis, caught between two bankrupt political forces, the reactionary Republicans and their Tea Party fanatics that seem at the moment to have somewhat the upper hand, but not by much in my accounting, and the Wall Street Democrats, led by the abject Wall Street puppet Obama, and the crying need of the hour, a third force, some kind of organized resistance, some kind of organized alternative to those two bankrupt, discredited, and widely hated political parties. They're like two drunks that prop each other up. A third force could upset the apple cart and bring these things into, these political forces into rapid evolution. And that, of course, is the goal of this radio broadcast and of Tarpley.net, the creation of a programmatic third force, knowing what to do, recognizing the existence of a world economic and financial depression of colossal proportions, a breakdown crisis, a disintegration of the entire Anglo-American banking system and derivatives-based financial flows. At the same time, then, providing a solution to that, the 5-point program in particular that you see at the top of Tarpley.net. Let me just mention for listeners in Italy, if you get Il Mattino of Naples of Thursday, October 28th, you will there find something of an interview with me. The correspondent Gerardo Auziello was here in Washington on the weekend, and we spent some time talking at Capitol Hill at the anti-Obama demonstration, and also then in Union Station. So let's look first at at these elections. Now, if we look, just do something that's not often done. What's the worldwide pattern of recent elections? It is gridlock. It is situations of essential rough parity between political forces, right? We've seen this in the Netherlands, where it took a long time to form a cabinet. In Britain, a hung parliament with a coalition government for the first time in a long time, in a British system that's designed to create a majority. In Australia, a very close election. In Germany, Chancellor Merkel losing her majority in the upper house, the Bundesrat, and we could probably give you a few other cases, Iraq, if we want to mention that one, where they still haven't formed a government. And thanks to WikiLeaks, they probably won't. We'll get to WikiLeaks in just a minute. The WikiLeaks leaks this time designed to prevent the pro-Iranian Maliki from forming a government and making sure that the U.S. puppet Alawi has a chance to form a government and bring Iraq into the anti-Iranian front. But just to stick to our election theme, Netherlands, Australia, Britain, Germany, it's a wide sample. And generally the tendency is gridlock. Now, the United States has a somewhat different story because in 2008 we had the orgy of messianic utopian rhetoric, the building up of a aura of totally artificial charisma around the wretched, bungling figure of Obama, the apotheosis of Obama in the days before the election, his projection up into the stars, I guess like Hercules in the ancient world. But we're now having the hangover for that, right? If you remember, and I urge you to read it if you don't remember it, Obama, the Postmodern Coup, and indeed Barack H. Obama, the unauthorized biography, both available at Tarpley.net. Both required reading because what's happening today is all in there. The prediction, of course, is that if you run on a rational program of concrete reforms, on the one side you can claim a mandate for that. You can say this is what the voters voted for. And if you fail, then it's clear that this is a matter of policy. If, however, you run on hope, change, I'm the Messiah, I can walk on water, I'm the anointed one or the one, depending on what parish you're coming from, then the emotional letdown, the hangover from that kind of an orgy of messianic utopian expectations, of course, is absolutely crushing and your deluded, fanaticized foot soldiers lapse into a virtual catatonia at the time of the election. And to some extent, you're seeing that, although it's now mitigated by the obvious, horrible face of the Tea Party fanatic, the Angle, the Miller, the O'Donnell, the Buck, the Scott, and so on down the line. Contemplating the face of those reactionary bandits is scaring some people and bringing them out to the polls. And I think that's ultimately a possible outcome of this election. I'll talk about some others in a minute. But that we'll have, if not in this election, then over time, the momentum begin to shift away from the Republicans. Because suppose we have a Senate where Angle becomes a national figure, where Buck becomes a national figure. How about that unshaven face of Miller from Alaska, obvious gangster visage? Then this is going to create a horrible abreaction, and as I think is likely, they will proceed to try to shut down the Congress. And let's be very blunt about this. Back in 1995, we had this exercise with Newt Gingrich, Dick Armey, Domenici, and some others. They wanted to provoke the national bankruptcy of the United States. They wanted a default, partly because, as Domenici said on one occasion, and I wrote about this, I'll try to find that old article maybe and put it up. Domenici said that he had spent some time during the budget crisis of September, October of 1995 in a room full of hedge fund operators with one Stanley Druckenmiller. Druckenmiller, of course, being one of the top acolytes and satellites of the Soros gang. And that Druckenmiller had said, if it's really a matter of cutting down the deficit and getting us back on a good financial footing, a U.S. default for the first time in history would be a good thing. We can see this idea circulating. The reactionary Peter Schiff of the Austrian school, that toxic foreign doctrine that is so hateful and so incompatible with the greatness of United States' national future, this scorned doctrine that nobody in Austria would follow, but they call themselves the Austrian school. There's no Austrian school in Austria, but it's coming to the United States Congress in some form. Peter Schiff has got a little tape on the Internet. You can find it, where he says the United States should default. That would be a good thing. And remember, this is their ideology. Starve the beast. Starve the beast. Government is the enemy. These people are right-wing anarchists working for finance capital. That's a very dangerous recipe. Right-wing anarchists, thugs, goons, hooligans, gutter snipes, and so forth, working for finance capital, rowdies, sociopaths, and so forth. How about Tom Tancredo in Colorado, the race baiter, the neo-know-nothing? These characters, but working for the Koch brothers, the Koch brothers, for Richard Mellon Scaife, for that right-wing fringe of the Schultz, Rupert Murdoch right-wing faction. In other words, the right of the right, the extreme right of the extreme right in the U.S. ruling class, because the U.S. ruling class has no left wing. It has you could call a center around Soros, James Baker III, people like this. But the extreme right with George Soros and Rupert Murdoch, and then the extreme right fringe of that, the Koch brothers and so forth. These people, they're one generation removed from people who idolized Mussolini, hated Roosevelt, and so forth. So you're getting a little bit close to those dangerous totalitarian movements in Central Europe in the 1920s and 30s, dear friends. So we'll be back in a minute with more election analysis.